Hello, world. I'm all slumped down. Hello. Bo was so funny. Oh, you can't really see him. And now there's an ad break. But here's Bo. He was like walking in when I was sitting here and acting like he wanted something from me. And I was like, "What do you want?" And then I left the room. And when I came back, there he was, sitting on the chair. So I guess what he wanted from me was my chair. But yes, hello everyone. If anyone is here, welcome, welcome. Uh, so it has been a hot minute. We have been doing Dracula lately, but it is time to return to Pride and Prejudice. So let's see. Can I zoom out a little? You're getting the leg of the tripod, but there. Can I mitigate that? Nope, it's that one. Okay. But last time, Mr. Collins made his intentions known, and he, in fact, told Elizabeth he wanted to marry her. And it was a rather sticky situation because she said, "No, thank you, you stinky little man." And he was like, he couldn't fathom a world in which he was a stinky little man. And so he was like, I'll take that no as a yes. And so it was a whole debacle where her mom wanted her to say yes, so she was like, "Okay, let's go to her father. He'll sort her out." And her dad's like, "Oh, you have quite the dilemma here, Elizabeth. If you don't marry Collins, your mother will never speak to you again. If you do marry Mr. Collins, I will never speak to you again." So he was pretty awesome about that, and at the end of the day, we did seem to... Hello, cheese bacon burger. Hello, cheese bacon burger, 1930. Welcome. I am just explaining what went down on our last episode of Pride and Prejudice. But yes, so her dad seemed to talk Mr. Collins down, and he eventually seemed to get the memo that, hey, maybe she's not interested. But it seemed more like he was like, "You know what? I picked her because I thought she would make me happy, and I'm starting to feel like she's not going to make me happy. So, you know what? Like, maybe she has a little bit of the tude on her. Maybe she has a little attitude. So, no thanks. You can keep her." That's more like what it seemed at the end there. But yeah, it seemed like at the end, finally we talked him down and we're able to make it clear that no actually means no. Nice. There you go. Well, I guess I'm falling asleep to this tonight. Well, I am honored to be the thing you fall asleep to. That is my grandparents or my grandma's actually listened to this too, and one of them said that she also falls asleep to this. And hello, Grandma. I assume I will be seeing you in the VOD. But yeah, so I am honored to for my stream to be your lullaby. And hello, Deathshead. Sounds like something someone would enjoy ordering. Who is that someone? What is this reference? But yes, so, I don't remember if Mr. Collins has left yet. I don't know if he packed his bags or if he's still hanging around. But, oh god, just, cheese bacon. Well, no, I knew you meant cheese, bacon burger would be the thing that would be enjoyed. But who is the someone who would enjoy it? Or just a generic anybody would like that. That's just a good time. But yes, welcome to the stream. Let us begin. We have a bit of a weird angle. I don't know why this weirdness happened, but it did, and I think it's still gonna work okay. Like that. Okay. Not me. I don't like hamburgers. Hey, I'm with caveats. I'm kind of the same. I don't want to say that because my mom makes really amazing hamburgers and she does an awesome job with like flavors from around the world and stuff. But as a general principle, in general, I also don't like hamburgers. Yes, okay. Bleh. Oh, this is gonna be a little weird to get used to. There? Okay, there. Chapter. I want to get the 21. There we go. Chapter 21. The discussion of Mr. Collins's offer was now nearly at an end, and Elizabeth had only to suffer from the uncomfortable feelings necessarily attending it, and occasionally from some peevish allusion of her mother. As for the gentleman himself, his feelings were chiefly expressed, not by embarrassment or dejection, or by trying to avoid her, but by stiffness of manner and resentful silence. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like what he'd do. He scarcely ever spoke to her, and the assiduous intentions which he had been so sensible of himself... Wait, did I read that right? He scarcely ever spoke to her, and the assiduous attentions which he had been so sensible of himself were transferred for the rest of the day to Miss Lucas, whose civility in listening to him was a seasonable relief to them all, and especially to her friend. Nice job, Miss Lucas, taking one for the team, sitting and listening to Mr. Collins. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat rumbling. He wants to cough, but he's not coughing just yet. The morrow produced no abatement of Mrs. Bennet's ill humor or ill health. Mr. Collins was also in the same state of angry pride. There he goes. Elizabeth had hoped that his resentment might shorten his visit, but his plan did not... Where did I read? Oh, Mr. Collins. I think I read that as Mr. Bennet. Mr. Collins was also in the same state of angry pride. Elizabeth had hoped that his resentment might shorten his visit, but his plan did not appear in the least affected by it. He was always to have gone on Saturday, and to Saturday he still meant to stay. Oh boy, that would be pretty awful that, like, somebody's over at your house and proposes to you, and you say no, and you're like, oh, so you're gonna leave early now, because, you know, it's awkward, and your reason for coming here is, you know, kind of done now. And it's like, no. I said I was staying till Saturday. I'm staying till Saturday. It's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Sounds great. At breakfast, the girls walked to Meryton to inquire if Mr. Wickham were returned, and to lament over his absence from the Netherfield ball. He joined them on their entering the town and attended them to their aunt's, where his regret and vexation... Hold on. I know lament can mean a lot of things, and it can mean silent, it can mean very quiet, but I'm just totally getting this image of them wailing about his absence, and that they, like, go into town and they're like, oh, Mr. Wickham, if only you could have been at the ball. It's like, I'm not dead. He joined the... No, stop. This way. No, not that. Oh no, I made it worse. Oh, it's so weird. Okay, so that makes it worse. Can you go, yeah, more straight on there? That's better. Okay, he joined them on their entering the town and attended them to their aunt's, where his regret and vexation... I read that too happily. What's happening? We're stuck. No. How do I get... There we go. And the concern of everybody was well talked over. To Elizabeth, however, he voluntarily acknowledged that the necessity of his absence had been self-imposed. I don't remember the voice I gave him. I think it was just gentlemanly. I found, said he, as the time drew near, that I had better not meet with me. Oh, gosh. I forgot that I put that there. Do you like that better? my parents were gracious enough to get me a reading light. It doesn't seem so bad without it, but then when you have it and then you turn it off, it's like, oh, that's not so great, I think. But let me know if this is worse to you. But yeah, it's a touch lamp, so I just like hit it with my knuckle. I found, as the time drew near, that I had better not meet Mr. Darcy. That to be in the same room, the same party with him for so many hours together might be more than I could bear, and the scenes might arise unpleasant to more than myself. You know, that's pretty discerning. That's a pretty good idea. It's like, you know what? If I see that man, I'm gonna get mad and I'm gonna cause a scene. We're not gonna have fun, and everybody else isn't gonna have fun. I mean, some people will like the drama, but it's just gonna ruin the party for people. So you know what? It's better that I stay home. You know, that's a gentlemanly thing to do. She highly approved of his forbearance, and they had leisure for a full discussion of it, and for all the commendation which they civilly bestowed on each other, as Wickham and another officer walked back with them to Longbourn. And during the walk, he particularly attended to her, as accompanying them was a double advantage. She felt all the compliment it offered to herself, and it was most acceptable as an occasion of introducing him to her father and mother. So she just rejected Mr. Collins, and now she's bringing another man home. This is either gonna go great or horribly. It's gonna be like, Mr. Collins has not left. He's still here, and you're already bringing another man home? Or would it be like, you know what? You got your eye on this other guy. He's pretty nice. I don't remember how much money he has, which I think is at least what Mom cares about the most. But it's like, I think that they'd like him. At least, you know, Mrs. Bennet might be salty and might find faults with him. But if she opens her heart, she'd probably like him, at least as a person. Even if he's not rich enough for her taste. Soon after their return, a letter was delivered to Miss Bennet. It came from Netherfield. I assume that means Jane, but you can't use Miss Bennet. Oh, Jane. Actual Jane Austen. Because that can refer to 5 people. So a letter was delivered to Miss Bennet. It came from Netherfield and was opened immediately. The envelope contained a sheet of elegant little hot-pressed paper. Elegant little hot-pressed paper? Do any of you know what hot-pressed... Does that just mean, like, it's hot off the press? Like, you know, I guess at, back at school, like, we had those really big, heavy-duty printers, and you would get the paper hot off that printer, and it would be, like, all smooth and warm and nice, like clothes out of the dryer. So, it's not the same, obviously, but I guess that's what it means. Or something... Maybe something more metaphorical of just it's fresh. The envelope contained a sheet of elegant little hot pressed paper, well covered with a lady's fair, flowing hand. And Elizabeth saw her sister's countenance change as she read it. Okay, I thought this was going to be from Mr. Bingley, but maybe it's from the sister. And saw her dwelling intently on some particular passages. Jane recollected herself soon, and putting the letter away, tried to join with her usual cheerfulness in the general conversation. But Elizabeth felt an anxiety on the subject, which drew off her attention even from Wickham. And no sooner had he and his companion taken leave than a glance from Jane invited her to follow her upstairs. When they had gained their own room, Jane, taking out the letter, said, oh no. No. Yes, okay. Okay. No, what did I do? I messed it up. Oh, okay, there. I can't remember if Caroline is, which one Caroline is, but it is one of the sisters. This is from Caroline Bingley. What it contains has surprised me a good deal. The whole party have left Netherfield by this time, and are on their way to town, without any intention of coming back again. You shall hear what she says. Oh, so Mr. Darcy was talking about this before, right? That he was like, yeah, Mr. Bingley could just up and leave Netherfield at any time and would have no regrets about it, right? She then read the first sentence aloud, which comprised the information of their having just resolved to follow their brother to town directly, and of their meaning to dine that day in Grosvenor Street, where Mr. Hurst had a house. The next was in these words: I do not pretend to regret anything I shall leave in Hertfordshire, except your society, my dearest friend. Oh, okay. For a second, I read that as like, oh, yeah, I'll regret leaving, but I won't regret leaving the society. But no, it's I won't regret leaving, but I will regret leaving our friendship. I think your society just meaning your company. Do not pretend to regret anything I shall leave in Hertfordshire, except your society, my dearest friend. But we will hope at some future period to enjoy many returns of the delightful intercourse we have known. I don't like that phrasing. I know it worked back then, but I don't like it now. But to enjoy many returns of the delightful intercourse we have known. And in the I went Mr. Collins there. And in the meanwhile, may lessen the pain of separation by a very frequent and most unreserved correspondence. I depend on you for that. Let me reread that, because I butchered that. I do not pretend to regret anything I shall leave in Hertfordshire, except your society, my dearest friend. But we will hope at some future period to enjoy many returns of the delightful intercourse we have known, and in the meanwhile may lessen the pain of separation by a very frequent and most unreserved correspondence. I depend on you for that. To these high-flown expressions, Elizabeth listened with all the insensibility of distrust. Fantastic. I love that. That sentence seemed like it was gonna say something positive, like, oh, lovely. But it's like, yeah, like, all the insensibility of distrust. That is great. That's kind of how I've been feeling. It's like, I don't think Jane is her dearest friend. I think she is full of crap right now. Yeah. Where did it go? And though the suddenness of her removal surprised her, she saw nothing in it really to lament. It was not to be supposed that their absence from Netherfield would prevent Mr. Bingley being there. Oh, okay, so they're leaving, but not Mr. Bingley. Okay, well that's way better. That's a way better result. Would not prevent Mr. Bingley being there, and as the loss of their society, she was persuaded that Jane must soon cease to regard it in the enjoyment of his. That's right, I feel the same way. It is unlucky, said she, after a short pause. Oh, maybe that's Elizabeth, actually? I don't know. Again, like, we were just talking about Jane, but we were talking about Elizabeth's thoughts, and so when you say, said she, I don't know which she it is. Let's see. Okay, so that seems like it's Elizabeth. All right. But now, it's been long enough that I'm forgetting the specific voices I gave him. It is unlucky, said she, after a short pause, that you should not be able to see your friends before they leave the country. We may not... But may we not hope that the period of future happiness to which Miss Bingley looks forward may arrive earlier than she is aware, and that the delightful intercourse you have known as friends will be renewed with yet greater satisfaction as sisters. Mr. Bingley will not be detained in London by then. I don't know what she means about him being detained in London, but yeah, if they're sisters, then they will be even closer, which I don't know that Miss Bingley is actually happy about, but... Caroline decidedly says that none of the party will return... Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Into Hertfordshire this winter. I will read it to you. When my brother left us yesterday, he imagined that the business which took him to London— oh, so I guess he was going to London, I must have forgotten— might be concluded in 3 or 4 days, but as we are certain it cannot be so, and at the same time convinced that when Charles gets to town he will be in no hurry to leave it again, we have determined on following him thither, that he may not be obliged to spend his vacant hours in a comfortless hotel. Many of my acquaintance are already there for the winter. I wish I could hear that you, my dearest friend, had any intention of making one in the crowd, but of that I despair. What do you mean, making one in the crowd? Like, I assume she's saying, I wish you came with us. So, like, I wish to hear that you were coming with us. But it's like, you're informing her about any of this happening for the first time right now after you're gone. So if you really wanted her to come with, you would have said something earlier. Let's see. Many of my acquaintance are already there for the winter. I wish I could hear that you, my dearest friend, had any intention of making one in the crowd, but of that I despair. I sincerely hope your Christmas in Hertfordshire may abound in the gaieties which that season generally brings, and that your beaux will be so numerous as to prevent your feeling the loss of 3, of whom we shall deprive you. Doesn't beau mean lovers? Doesn't that specifically mean like romantic entanglements? No, I want to check. Well, the first one is a male lover or sweetheart. Yep. Yeah, all of these are about male lovers. So if that is the correct interpretation, I guess that means I hope you'll find, other boyfriends than my brother. I don't want you to be my sister, kind of thing. Because she has one beau, and it's Mr. Bingley, and you're leaving with him. It is evident by this, added Jane, that he comes back no more this winter. Oh, yeah, okay. It is only evident that Miss Bingley does not mean he should. So Miss Bingley doesn't think he should return, not that he won't. Why will you think so? It must be his own doing. Yeah. Why will you think so? It must be his own doing. He is his own master, but you do not know all. I will read you the passage which particularly hurts me. I will have no reserves from you. That is a weird italic. I will read you the passage that hurt me. It's like, I will listen to no arguments, and it's like, who is arguing? It's okay. You can read it to her. Mr. Darcy is impatient to see his sister and to confess the truth. We are scarcely less eager to meet her again. We are scarcely less eager. So does that mean we're very eager? Like, we've never been less, or no? Because if you say, like, I've never been less eager, then that would mean I'm really not eager. I don't want to see her again. So I don't know if that means we're really eager or we're really not eager. I really do not think Georgiana— whoa, that's quite a name. I really do not think Georgiana Darcy has her equal for beauty, elegance, and accomplishments. The affection she inspires in Louisa and myself is heightened into something still more interesting, from the hope we dare to entertain of her being hereafter our sister. I do not know whether I ever before mentioned to you my feelings on the subject, but I will not leave the country without confiding them. I trust you will not esteem them unreasonable. Okay, so she's gonna tell us that she's in love with Mr. Darcy. What's Elizabeth gonna feel about that? My brother admires her greatly already. He will have frequent opportunity now of seeing her on the most intimate footing. Her relations all wish the connection as much as his own, and a sister's partiality is not misleading me, I think, when I call Charles most capable of engaging any woman's heart. With all these circumstances— wait, so is she saying that actually that Mr. Bingley is going to marry Mr. Darcy's sister? That's not something I thought was coming. But wasn't there some connection No, I was gonna say, wasn't there some connection with Catherine? But that's actually Mr. Darcy. Okay. I think when I call Charles most capable of engaging any woman's heart, with all these circumstances to favor an attachment, and nothing to prevent it, I am wrong, my dearest Jane, in indulging the hope of an event which will secure the happiness of so many. What think you of this sentence, my dear Lizzie? Said Jane as she finished it. Is it not clear enough? Does it not expressly declare that Caroline neither expects nor wishes me to be her sister, that she is perfectly convinced of her brother's indifference, and that if she suspects the nature of my feelings for him, she means, most kindly, to put me on my guard? Can there be any other opinion on this subject? Yes, there can, for mine is totally different. Will you hear it? Most willingly. You shall have it in a few words. Miss Bingley sees that her brother is in love with you, and wants him to marry Miss Darcy. She follows him to town in the hope of keeping him there, and tries to persuade you that he does not care about you. Jane shook her head. Indeed, Jane, you ought to believe me. No one who has ever seen you together can doubt his affection. Miss Bingley, I am sure, cannot. She is not such a simpleton. Could she have seen half as much love in Mr. Darcy for herself, she would have ordered her wedding clothes. That's great. I like that. It's like, yeah, everybody knows you guys are in love with each other, and she is parading herself in front of Mr. Darcy. And if she saw that kind of affection from Mr. Darcy, she'd already be buying wedding clothes. That is fantastic. But yeah, it seems like Elizabeth is going, like, Jane's like, oh, like, he doesn't love me. There's no other way to read this. And then Elizabeth is like, no, there is another way to read this. Miss Bingley's a piece of crap, and she's plotting to sabotage your relationship. And you know what? It ain't crazy. I think she's right. But the case is this. We are not rich enough or grand enough for them, and she is the more... No. Nah. Oh no. Sorry if I blind you every time I do that. Come on. What is going on here? There we go. To go really far down, actually. And now it's seeming like I have to be a little lopsided. Okay. Okay, what was even the last sentence? Now I don't remember. And she's the more anxious to get Miss Darcy for her brother. From the notion that when there has been one intermarriage, she may have less trouble in achieving a second, in which there is certainly some inequity, and I dare say would succeed, if Mr. Borrow were out of the way. My dearest Jane, you cannot seriously imagine that because Miss Bingley tells you her brother greatly admires Miss Darcy, that he is the smallest degree less sensible of your merit than when he took leave of you on Tuesday, or that it will be in her power to persuade him that, instead of being in love with you, he is very much in love with her friend. If we, oh no. There we go. If we thought alike of Miss Bingley, replied Jane, your representation of all this might make me quite easy. But I know the foundation is unjust. Oh no. Caroline is incapable of willfully deceiving anyone. Oh, you want to bet. And all that I can hope in this case is that she is deceived herself. That is right. You could not have started a more happy idea, since you will not take comfort in mine. Leave her to be deceived by all means. You have now done your duty by her, and must fret no longer. So I guess she's saying, like, if you can't believe me, sure, like, that works as a conceptualization. But yeah, she can't lie to anyone. You sure about that? I don't feel like you can say that statement about anyone. I guess that does go back to how Jane was introduced as being too kind and trusting. That we are definitely seeing that here. But my dear sister, can I be happy? even supposing the best in accepting a man whose sisters and friends are all wishing him to marry elsewhere? You must decide for yourself, said Elizabeth. And if upon mature deliberation you find that the misery of disobliging his two sisters is more than equivalent to the happiness of being his wife, I advise you by all means to refuse him. How can you talk so? Said Jane, faintly smiling. You must know that though I should be exceedingly grieved at their disprobation, I could not hesitate. I did not think you would. No. I did not think you would. And that being the case, I cannot consider your situation with much compassion. But if he returns no more this winter, my choice will never be required. 1,000 things may arise in 6 months. The idea of his returning no more, Elizabeth treated with the utmost contempt. It appeared to her merely the suggestion of Caroline's interested wishes, and she could not for a moment suppose that those wishes, however openly or artfully spoken, could influence a young man so totally independent of everyone. And she represented to her sister, as forcibly as possible, that she felt on the subject, what she felt on the subject, and had soon the pleasure of seeing its happy effect. Jane's temper was not desponding, and she was gradually led to hope, though the diffidence of affection sometimes overcame the hope, that Bingley would return to Netherfield and answer every wish of her heart. It feels like you're going to the extremes here. Either he never returns, or he immediately returns and answers all your wishes. The answer's probably going to be in the middle. They agreed that Mrs. Bennet should only hear of the departure of the family without being alarmed on the score of the gentleman's conduct. But even this partial communication gave her a great deal of concern. She bewailed it as exceedingly unlucky that the ladies should happen to go away, just as they were all getting so intimate together. After lamenting it, however, at some length, she had the consolation of thinking that Mr. Bingley would be soon down again, and soon dining in Longbourn, and the conclusion of all was the comfortable declaration that, though he had been invited only to a family dinner, she would take care to have 2 full courses. Wait, is she dreaming about the future, or did he just get invited? I was thinking that might be the case. But yeah, I don't know if they've left already, and they might have, but if they haven't, this is definitely a go catch the plane situation. Go run after him, have your romantic moment, catch him before he leaves and tell him you love him. All right, let us continue on. Chapter 22. Oh no, don't fall. The Bennets were engaged to dine with the Lucases, and again during the chief of the day was Miss Lucas so kind as to listen to Mr. Collins. Miss Lucas, she is carrying the weight of the conversation, not just the conversation, but all the conversations. You need to bake her some cookies after this. Unless, of course, she actually is starting to fall in love with him. I hope not, but it's possible. Elizabeth took an opportunity of thanking her. Oh, good. It keeps him in good humor, said she. I am more obliged to you than I can express. Charlotte assured her friend of her satisfaction in being useful, and that it amply repaid her for the little sacrifice of her time. That is really kind. This is very amiable, but Charlotte's kindness extended farther than Elizabeth had any conception of. Its object was nothing less than to secure her from any return of Mr. Collins's addresses by engaging them towards herself. Okay, so that might mean she is in love with him, right? Am I understanding that? Such was Miss Lucas's scheme, and appearances were so favorable that when they parted at night, she would have felt almost sure of success if he had not been to leave Hertfordshire so very soon. But here she did injustice to the fire of independence of his character, for it led him to escape out of Longbourn House the next morning with admirable slyness, and hasten to Lucas Lodge to throw himself at her feet. He was anxious to avoid the notice of his cousins, from a conviction that if they saw him depart, they could not fail to conjecture his design, and he was not willing to have the attempt known till its success could be known likewise. So this is interesting. So he's kind of like a puppy, just falling at the feet of anybody who shows him, who pets him and shows him any smidgen of affection. I guess this Lucas is doing a little bit more than that, but Elizabeth wasn't. I don't know how that's injustice to the independence of his character. Oh, I guess it's saying, like, she thought that, oh, no, like, I didn't succeed because he's gonna leave. And then it's like, no, you're underestimating him. He came to your house. I don't know if I like the phrase admirable slyness. Slyness, I feel, usually is not an admirable trait, and I feel like it's not very admirable right here. Attempt known until its success could be known likewise. For though feeling almost... Do I hear a kitty? Hold on. I do hear a kitty. Hi, Bella. That's loud. Did I leave you? Did I leave you outside the office? You were sleeping peacefully. You were sleeping peacefully. I didn't think there was a problem. Baby cat. Yes, baby kitty. Well, Bo's in the chair, so I don't know where you can... Pride and Prejudice is on the desk, so I don't know where you can go. I don't know. I just don't know. It's just too much. Oh, yeah, you like that, don't you? I don't know if the mic will pick up her purrs. But she immediately started purring. It's so cute. Can I just leave you on my lap? Can we do that? That could be a spot for you. I'm just sitting here on my lap. She does this. I don't know if you guys have seen her do this. She tries to bury herself in my armpit. I never know if she's trying to get away or just trying to hide. Oh, yeah, so cute. That's a cute little kitty. It's a little baby. Good baby. Let's see if I can navigate the weird positioning with one hand. Alright, I don't remember the end of the last sentence, but... Skewer with reason for Charlotte of intolerably encouraging. He was... There's that word again. Tolerably encouraging. Yeah, super tolerable. Super fun. I mean, it goes more along with what we were thinking earlier in this series, that it's tolerable actually seems pretty good so far. He was comparatively diffident since the adventure of Wednesday. That's amazing. I want to call, if there's, I usually will say, the debacle or something like that, the debacle that happened the other day, but the adventure of Wednesday is such a great way to phrase something that went horribly. His reception, however, was of the most flattering kind, Miss Lucas perceived him from an upper window as he walked towards the house and instantly set out to meet him accidentally in the lane. But little had she dared to hope that so much love and eloquence awaited her there. Kitty? You want to get up or you want to stay? Okay, you're getting up. Okay. You guys doing okay? I haven't heard you guys talking. Did something happen to the stream, or are you just quietly listening? Or did Mako fall asleep? Okay, that sounds okay. Good. Yes. I don't know where you want to go. All your spots are taken. All your spots are taken. Yeah, he might be. He might be. Oh, he's so cute. Can you hear how loud she is? She's very loud to me. Alright, let's try again. In as short a time as Mr. Collins's long speeches would allow. Alright, here you are. What is your plan? Yes, a very talkative kitty. What is your plan, Kitty? Are you going to disturb my reading? I mean, you already are. You might hear that purring. Babe. Where you going, Kitty? Where you going? I don't know if you could see that. She licked my nose. I love it when she does that. It's really cute. And there's her nose in front of you. Okay. 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 Baby. Now the camera's just a sea of fur. Just a white sea of fur. Oh no. Oh no, kitty. Oh no. Ah. No, I don't want to remove that. No, absolutely not. Kitty. Okay, that might be acceptable. Did I go? I went really far back. Oh no. Okay. In as short a time as Mr. Collins's long speeches would allow, everything was settled between them to the satisfaction of both. And as they entered the house, he earnestly entreated her to name the day that was to make him the happiest of men. And though such a solicitation must be waived for the present, Kitty, little nose in shadow. The lady felt no inclination to trifle with his happiness. The stupidity with which he was favored by nature must guard his courtship from any charm that could make a woman wish for its... Baby. It's continuous. The stupidity with which he was favored by nature must guard his courtship from any charm that could make a woman wish for its continuance. And Miss Lucas, who accepted him solely from the pure and disinterested desire of an establishment, cared not how soon that establishment were gained. I'm really confused as to what's going on here. Like, does she actually love him? Does she not love him, but still wants to marry him? Or is she like, I want to form an alliance with him, but not necessarily marry him? What's the angle here? What's the situation here? I guess while the kitty is in the way, I can reread it and see if I get any better clues. Oh, okay. You moving back? You moving back to a better place? So it does say, though such a solicitation must be waived for the present. Um, yeah, so such a solicitation must be waived for the present might mean, no, I'm not going to marry you right now, but she maybe did it more tactfully or in a way that he still was like, it's like, let's still be friends, maybe? Hold on just a second. Okay. Who accepted him, but it also says she accepted him. Yeah, I don't know that helps. Sir William and Lady Lucas were speedily applied to for their consent. It was bestowed with a most joyful alacrity. Okay, that also seems like, yeah, talking to the parents to okay it. Mr. Collins's present circumstances made it a most eligible match for their daughter, to whom they could give little fortune, and his prospects of future wealth were exceedingly fair. Lady Lucas began directly to calculate with more interest than the matter had ever excited before how many years longer Mr. Bennet was likely to live, and Sir William gave it as his decided opinion that whenever Mr. Collins should be in possession of the Longbourn estate, it would be highly expedient that both he and his wife should make their appearance at St. James's. Oh my goodness, some friends they are. If it's like, oh, you're gonna marry this man and he's gonna acquire a friend's house. When are they gonna die? Oh my goodness. No hesitation. The whole family. In short, were properly overjoyed on the occasion. The younger girls formed hopes of coming out a year or two sooner than they might have done. I assume that means a debutante ball, but boy, that means something different in our world. And the boys really relieved from their apprehension of Charlotte's dying an old maid. I didn't know that she had siblings. I thought she was the only child. Again, tell us these things, Miss Austen, Mrs. Austen. Please, I want to know. And I'm forgetting the placement yet again. Yep. There we go. Charlotte herself was tolerably composed. Once again, tolerably composed. She had gained her point and had time to consider it. Her reflections were in general satisfactory. Mr. Collins, to be sure, was neither sensible nor agreeable. His society was irksome, and his attachment to her must be imaginary. But still, he would be her husband. That doesn't sound great. It's like he's not sensible. He's dumb. I don't like him. I don't enjoy being around him. And I think that these romantic feelings are completely imaginary. But he's gonna be my husband. Like, I feel like there should be a no in there. I will not have him for my husband. Not he will be my husband. Without thinking highly either of men or of matrimony, marriage had always been her object. It was the only honorable provision for well-educated young women of small fortune, and, however uncertain of giving happiness, must be their pleasant preservative from want. Okay, so she doesn't. That's sad. So she doesn't want to get married. Once again, I have lost. I have lost where I meant to put it. This far. Kitty. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi. Hello. Yeah, so she doesn't want to get married, but she needs to so that she won't be destitute. So she does. That's sad. Okay. I've not done that before. Let's see. Oh, let's make this bigger. This. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, it is done. uh, Thank you for letting me know. I don't usually have to do that kind of thing, and so it's helpful to be told when I should. Kitty. Yet again. Ugh. Stop. Okay. Oh, I was gonna say, why does it seem smaller? It's because I made the chat bigger. There we go. That's better. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Without thinking highly of either of men or of matrimony, marriage had always been her object. It was the only honorable provision for well-educated young women of small fortune, and however uncertain of giving happiness, it must be their pleasantest preservative from want. The preservative she had now obtained, and at the age of 27, and without having ever been handsome, she felt all the good luck of it. The least agreeable circumstance in the business was the surprise it must occasion to Elizabeth Bennet, for sure. And, oh no. Yeah. Don't know why it's so confusing to me. If you don't, if I didn't make it clear, so it looks right side up to you, but it is on its side for me, and usually it's right side up for me too. But just something about the way I set the camera up, I must have set it up wrong, and so it made it to the side, and it is still readable because I just read it on my own screen, but it makes it very hard for my brain to understand which way I'm supposed to move the book to get it properly in the shot. Because, I think I'm moving it, because this, to me, feels like it's going to be more in the shot, but it's less. And then that is mostly more in the shot. Oh, there we go. Okay. The least agreeable circumstance in the business was the surprise it must occasion to Elizabeth Bennet, whose friendship she valued beyond that of any other person. Elizabeth would wonder, and probably would blame her, and though her resolution was not to be shaken, her feelings must be hurt by such disapprobation. She resolved to give her the information herself, and therefore charged Mr. Collins, when he returned to Longbourn to dinner, to drop no hint of what had passed before any of the family. A promise of secrecy was, of course, very dutifully given, but it could not be kept without difficulty, for the curiosity excited by his long absence burst forth in such very direct questions on his return as required some ingenuity to evade. And he was at the same time exercising great self-denial, for he was longing to publish his prosperous love. I love that phrasing, that, instead of proclaim your love, let me publish it. It is official. It is published in the world. And I don't know what they mean by long absence. He was just gone, he left in the night and proposed in the morning, right? So it doesn't sound that long. Kitty? Okay. Yeah, I got it. As he was to begin his journey too early on the morrow to see any of the family, the ceremony of leave-taking was performed when the ladies moved for the night. And Mrs. Bennet, with great politeness and cordiality, said how happy they should be to see him at Longbourn again, whenever his other engagements might allow him to visit them. You want out now, kitty? You want out now? Oh no. I thought it would stay. Oh crap. Aha. Nice. I don't know if I read the second part. Mrs. Bennet, with great politeness and cordiality, said how happy they should be to see him at Longbourn again, whenever his other engagements might allow him to visit them. My dear madam, he replied, this invitation is particularly gratifying, because it is what I have been hoping to receive, and you may be very certain that I shall avail myself of it as soon as possible. They were all astonished, and Mr. Bennet, who could by no means wish for so speedy a return, immediately said, But is there not danger of Lady Catherine's disapprobation here, my good sir? You had better neglect your relations than run the risk of offending your patroness. My dear sir, replied Mr. Collins, I am particularly obliged to you for this friendly caution, and you may depend on my not taking so material a step without her ladyship's concurrence. I assume that she will say yes to this because she wanted him to find a gal. But, yeah. You cannot be too much on your guard. Risk anything rather than her displeasure. And if you find it likely to be raised by your coming to us again, which I should think exceedingly probable, stay quietly at home and be satisfied that we shall take no offense. That's amazing. Oh, I would be, come again sometime. I would love to come again sometime, sooner rather than later. Well, you don't want to offend your patroness. Offend us before offending your patroness, and we will not be offended. So, feel free to never come back. We won't take it as offense. Believe me, my dear sir, my gratitude is warmly excited by such affectionate attention. Is that what it was? Affectionate attention. And depend on it, you will speedily receive from me a letter of thanks for this, as well as for every other mark of your regard during my stay in Hertfordshire. As for my fair cousins, though my absence may not be long enough, to render it necessary, I shall now take the liberty of wishing them health and happiness, not exceeding my cousin Elizabeth. Not accepting my cousin Elizabeth. With proper civilities, the ladies then withdrew, all of them equally surprised to find that he meditated a quick return. Mrs. Bennet wished to understand by it that he thought of paying his addresses to one of her younger girls, and Mary might have been prevailed on to accept him. So Mrs. Bennet thinks, oh, he's going to come back and propose to one of the other ones. Wonderful! She rated his abilities much higher than any of the others. There was a solidity in his reflections, which often struck her, And though by no means so clever as herself, she thought that if encouraged to read and improve himself by such an example as hers, he might become a very agreeable companion. But on the following morning, every hope of this kind was done away. Miss Lucas called soon after breakfast, and in a private conference with Elizabeth related the event of the day before. The possibility of Mr. Collins's fancying himself in love with her friend had once occurred to Elizabeth within the last day or two, but that Charlotte could encourage him seemed almost as far from possibility as that she could encourage him herself. Wait, what? I'm confused. Doesn't Charlotte could encourage him mean the same thing as she could encourage him herself? Oh, there's the ad. I was actually thinking of standing up, so why don't I do that? I shall do that while the ad is in progress. Might have gone too far. No. Oh. You can also see the kitty. There's the kitty. So soft and fluffy. Oh, I always get in the way. When you find a spot and go to sleep, you are just the most peaceful and quiet little kitty. Okie dokie. But yeah, so the possibility of Mr. Collins fancying himself, that Charlotte could encourage him, as far as the possibility she could encourage him herself. I guess maybe she's saying, like, the fact that he could take, what she's saying as encouragement, but she doesn't mean it that way. And so then she herself is purposely encouraging him is like even harder to fathom, which I get. I get, if that's what it's saying. And her astonishment was consequently so great as to overcome at first the bounds of decorum, and she could not help crying out, "Engaged to Mr. Collins? My dear Charlotte, impossible!" The steady countenance, which Miss Lucas had commanded in telling her story, gave way to a momentary confusion here, on receiving so direct a reproach. Though, as it was no more than she expected, she soon regained her composure, and calmly replied, "Why should you be surprised, my dear Eliza? Do you think it incredible that Mr. Collins should be able to procure any woman's good opinion, because he was not so happy as to succeed with you? No, you know what? I'm with Elizabeth. I didn't see him securing any woman's affection. Or what did she say? Good opinion? Yeah. But Elizabeth had now recollected herself. Stop. No. Go back. What's going on? There we go. And making a strong effort for it, was able to assure with tolerable firmness that the prospect of their relationship was highly grateful to her, and that she wished her all imaginable happiness. So I guess she's like, "That's impossible! How could that be? You know what? I hope you're happy. I wish you happiness. If that's what's gonna make you happy, that's okay." Which, you know what, again, fair reaction. "I see what you are feeling," replied Charlotte. "You must be surprised, very much surprised, so lately as Mr. Collins was wishing to marry you. But when you have had time to think it all over, I hope you will be satisfied with what I have done. I am not romantic, you know. I never was. I ask only a comfortable home, and considering Mr. Collins's character, connections, and situation in life, I am convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most people can boast on entering the marriage state." I hope most people can boast of more potential happiness than that. You poor girl. Elizabeth quietly answered, "Undoubtedly," and after an awkward pause, then returned to the rest of the family. Charlotte did not stay much longer, and Elizabeth was then left to reflect on what she had heard. It was a long time before she became at all reconciled to the idea of so unsuitable a match. The strangeness of Mr. Collins's making 2 offers of marriage within 3 days, was nothing in comparison of his being now accepted. Yeah, absolutely. She'd always felt that Charlotte's opinion of matrimony was not exactly like her own, but she could not have supposed it possible that, when called into action, she would have sacrificed every better feeling to worldly advantage. Agreed. Charlotte, the wife of Mr. Collins, was a most humiliating picture, and to the pang of a friend disgracing herself and sunk in her esteem was added the distressing conviction that it was impossible for that friend to be tolerably happy in the lot she had chosen. I am with you all the way, Elizabeth. Yes, yes. I have all these reactions too. So it is interesting that she's saying, okay, I don't feel the same way as Charlotte does. And so that it, you could guess from Elizabeth's attitude that she doesn't like marriage as a concept, potentially. And so this is clarifying, no, she does, or at least she feels differently, which is good information. And yeah, like, it's already nuts that he said he proposed to 2 people in 3 days, and kind of should give you concern, and maybe you shouldn't say yes to the second one, to either of them. But saying yes is even crazier than him making 2 proposals in 3 days. Yeah, and then it's like, oh, she doesn't like marriage, but when she was called into action, she chose, to get ahead in life, and that's, if that's what she wants, that's what she wants, but I don't know that that's what she wants. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I don't know that she can be happy in the lot she's chosen. Let me see. Oh, that's very short. We can do the next one. But yeah, I don't know, like, exactly how things were different in this regard back then, but, like, you are choosing a life partner. You're choosing somebody to do life with. And so their society should be agreeable. You should want to be around this person. It shouldn't be just like, oh, they're rich and, at least I won't be destitute. It's like, you will be miserable for the rest of your life. Are you going to be more miserable destitute, but not married to a creep? Or, okay in terms of money, but married to a creep? It's something to consider. I'm not sure you considered it strongly enough. Alright, chapter 23. Elizabeth was sitting with her mother and sisters, reflecting on what she had heard, and doubting whether she were authorized to mention it, when Sir William Lucas himself appeared, sent by his daughter to announce her engagement to the family. I mean, we'll see in the next sentence how they react, but that feels, I don't know, less proper to me. Maybe that's the proper way of doing things, but Charlotte should be telling them all herself. Yeah, I guess that is a good point. I mean, considering what destitution means, especially this time. This is like the same time or a similar time to what we were talking about the other day of like you can have a rope to sleep on and maybe a coffin. Yeah, so I guess I wasn't considering that maybe being married to a creep would be better than having to sleep on a rope. Potentially. With many compliments to them and much self-congratulation on the prospect of a connection between the houses, he unfolded the matter. To an audience not merely wondering, but incredulous, for Mrs. Bennet, with more perseverance than politeness, protested he must be entirely mistaken, and Lydia, always unguarded and often uncivil, boisterously exclaimed, "Good Lord, Sir William, how can you tell such a story? Do you not know that Mr. Collins wants to marry Lizzie?" And nothing less than her complaisance of a courtier would have borne without anger such treatment. But Sir William's good breeding carried him through it all, and though he begged leave to be positive as to the truth of his information, he listened to all their impertinence with the most forbearing courtesy. Hold on. Again, it was a different time, but it's like, imagine if somebody said that today, that it's like, you know what? my good genes carried me through it all. Like, I guess you could say that in certain situations, but not in this kind of situation. It's not, like, it's like, oh, I don't have allergies, my good genes carried me through allergy season. But saying, like, oh, like, he stayed composed because he had good breeding. It's like, I don't know about that. Elizabeth, feeling it incumbent on her to relieve him from so unpleasant a situation, now put herself forward to confirm his account by mentioning her prior knowledge of it from Charlotte herself, and endeavored to put a stop to the exclamations of her mothers and sisters by the earnestness of her congratulations to Sir William, in which she was readily joined by Jane, and by making a variety of remarks on the happiness that might be expected from the match, the excellent character of Mr. Collins, and the convenient distance of Hunsford from London. I guess because is that where Catherine de Bourgh lives, is London? It's like, oh, the distance, from London to here, like, so convenient. But maybe they're internally being like, I'm glad it's far, or something like that. Mrs. Bennet was, in fact, too much overpowered to say a great deal while Sir William remained. But no sooner had he left them than her feelings found a rapid vent. I believe that. In the first place, she persisted in disbelieving the whole of the matter. Secondly, she was very sure that Mr. Collins had been taken in. Thirdly, she trusted that they would never be happy together. And fourthly, that the match might be broken off. You know what? Maybe Mrs. Bennet speak in some sense. Except for he had been taken in. Like, you really think he's the one who had been taken in? I guess he kind of was in truth, but it's more just his own feelings and desire for a wife had taken himself in. Two inferences, however, were plainly deduced from the whole. One, that Elizabeth was the real cause of all the mischief, and the other, that she herself had been barbarously used by them all. And on these 2 points, she principally dwelt during the rest of the day. Oh no, that's not good. Neither of those things are true. Nothing could console and nothing could appease her. Nor did that day wear out her resentment. A week elapsed before she could see Elizabeth without scolding her. A month passed away before she could speak to Sir William or Lady Lucas without being rude. And many months were gone before she could at all forgive their daughter. Mr. Bennet's emotions were much more tranquil on the occasion, and such as he did experience, he pronounced to be one of the most agreeable sort. For it gratified him, he said, to discover that Charlotte Lucas, whom he had been used to think tolerably sensible, was as foolish as his wife, and more foolish than his daughter. Which daughter of his is the foolish one? Yeah, I'm not sure, but I see that. Oh, okay. So he's talking about his. So he's saying, Charlotte Lucas, he thought was sensible, is as foolish as Mrs. Bennet, and more foolish than one of his daughters. Interesting. Jane confessed herself a little surprised at the match, but she said less of her astonishment than of her earnest desire for their happiness. Nor could Elizabeth persuade her to consider it as improbable. Kitty and Lydia were far from envying Miss Lucas, for Mr. Collins was only a clergyman, and it affected them in no other way than as a piece of news to spread at Meryton. So first of all, I love the fact that most people are like, you, Mr. Collins, Charlotte, Mr. Collins, what? And then at the end, Jane is like, I'll admit, it's a little bit surprising. That was great. And then, yeah, Kitty and Lydia dodged a bullet, not having to deal with him trying to pursue them. But I think it's funny that instead of being like, they don't like him, it's just like, I'm aiming a bit higher than a clergyman. I need those army boys. And then they're just like, it just became gossip now. That's fun. Lady Lucas could not be insensible of triumph on being able to retort on Mrs. Bennet the comfort of having a daughter well married, and she called at Longbourn rather oftener than usual to say how happy she was, though Mrs. Bennet's sour looks and ill-natured remarks might have been enough to drive happiness away. Hold on. So the mom is rubbing it in Mrs. Bennet's face. So it's like, oh, it's so great to have a daughter who's married, all the while knowing Mrs. Bennet wants her daughters married really badly. And then she glares at her enough. So, like, I kind of get it now why she can't talk to them without being rude. You know, that is, you know, a not nice thing to do. So I kind of get it. I don't know what happened there. Between Elizabeth and Charlotte, there was a restraint which kept them mutually silent on the subject, and Elizabeth felt persuaded that no real confidence could ever subsist between them again. Her disappointment in Charlotte made her turn with fonder regard to her sister, of whose rectitude and delicacy she was sure her opinion could never be shaken, and for whose happiness she grew daily more anxious, as Bingley had now been gone a week, and nothing was heard of his return. Yeah, that's fair. It's like, I thought I knew you. I'm not sure I do. I'm not even sure I trust you. So, you know, so she's like, you know what? I'm gonna spend some more time with Jane. And it's also like, I thought you were smart. I am disappointed. Jane had sent Caroline an early answer to her letter, and was counting the days till she might reasonably hope to hear again. My brain was somewhere else. Oh, okay, so she just sent a letter back to Caroline. Okay. The promised letter of thanks from Mr. Collins arrived on Tuesday, addressed to their father, and written with all the solemnity of gratitude which a 12 months' abode in the family might have prompted. So, it's like he's thanking them like he spent a year with them. After discharging his conscience on that head, he proceeded to inform them with many rapturous expressions of his happiness in having obtained the affection of their amiable neighbor, Miss Lucas, and then explained that it was merely with the view of enjoying her society that he had been so ready to close with their kind wish of seeing him again at Longbourn. Whither he hoped to be able to return on Monday fortnight. For Lady Catherine, he added, so heartily approved his marriage, that she wished it to take place as soon as possible, which he trusted would be an unanswerable argument with his amiable Charlotte to name an early day for making him the happiest of men. I am very curious what Lady Catherine actually thinks of him, because it could be her being like, get him away from me. Like, find another lady to pester, man. I am happy you found somebody else. Mr. Collins' return into Hertfordshire was no longer a matter of pleasure to Mrs. Bennet. I don't think it's a matter of pleasure to anyone. Maybe not even, well, I mean, it is to Catherine and Lady Lucas and Sir William, but even Charlotte, I'm iffy on if it's a matter of pleasure. On the contrary, she was as much disposed to complain of it as her husband. It was very strange that he should come to Longbourn instead of to Lucas Lodge. I was thinking that. I was gonna say, like, he should go to the Lucas's house, not their house. It was also very convenient and exceedingly troublesome. Very inconvenient, I was about to say. It was also very inconvenient and exceedingly troublesome. She hated having visitors in the house while her health was so indifferent. And this is a Victor Frankenstein type illness. That she has fallen ill from just being so mad about this, being so shocked and frustrated and upset about this that now she's ill, and she's like, I don't want to have visitors because I'm ill of health. There are other reasons you don't want to have visitors. Hello, Civ. It's going well. We are reading more about Mr. Collins. I really thought that
he would be out of the story now, but it seems he might be more of a more permanent staple than I thought. I am curious. I am curious if something's gonna happen that, like, maybe Elizabeth will give Charlotte a good talking to and be like, "Hey, are you sure this is gonna make you happy?" and make her call it off, or if it's just, "Yep, this is the future." uh, she hated having visitors in the house while her health was so indifferent, and lovers were, of all people, the most disagreeable. Such were the gentle murmurs of Mrs. Bennet, and they gave way only to the greater distress of Mr. Bingley's continued absence. Yeah, that's fair. You got Mr. Collins, and you don't have Mr. Bingley to mitigate the pain of having to deal with him. Neither Jane nor Elizabeth were comfortable on this subject. Day after day passed away without bringing any other tidings of him than the report which shortly prevailed in Meryton of his coming no more to Netherfield the whole winter, a report which highly incensed Mrs. Bennet, and which she had never failed to contradict as a most scandalous falsehood. Oh, I see. That no other tidings other than the letter they got before. Mr. Bingley sounds like such a cartoony name. Yeah, it does. Even Elizabeth began to fear, not that Bingley was indifferent, but that his sisters would be successful in keeping him away. Yeah, that's fair. Unwilling as she was to admit an idea so destructive of Jane's happiness, and so dishonorable to the stability of her lover, she could not prevent its frequency recurring. The united efforts of his two unfeeling sisters, and his overpowering friend, assisted by the attractions of Miss Darcy, and the amusements of London, might be too much. She feared for the strength of his attachment. As for Jane, her anxiety under this suspense was, of course, more painful than Elizabeth's, but whatever she felt, she was desirous of concealing, and between herself and Elizabeth, therefore, the subject was never alluded to. But as no such delicacy restrained her mother, an hour seldom passed in which she did not talk of Bingley. Oh, man. Poor Jane. Express her impatience for his arrival, or even require Jane to confess that if he did not come back, she should think herself very ill-used. Oh, that's even worse. It needed all Jane's steady mildness to bear these attacks with tolerable tranquility. Yeah. Mr. Collins returned most punctually on the Monday fortnight, but his reception at Longbourn was not quite so gracious as it had been on his first introduction. He was too happy, however, to need much attention. I love the idea that everybody else is, like, skulking, and then he's just got, like, flowers and rainbows around his head, like, wandering around. La-di-da. He was too happy, however, to need much attention, and luckily for the others, the business of lovemaking relieved them from a great deal of his company. I am pretty certain that doesn't mean what I think it means, but whoa, that is a sentence. I think it just means, like, literally being in love and making love in the romantic sense. Wow, I did not know that was used in any other context. The chief of every day was spent by him at Lucas Lodge, and he sometimes returned to Longbourn only in time to make an apology for his absence before the family went to bed. Mrs. Bennet was really in a most pitiable state. The very mention of anything concerning the match threw her into an agony of ill humor, and wherever she went she was sure of hearing it talked of. The sight of Miss Lucas was odious to her. As her successor in that house, she regarded her with jealous abhorrence. That's a great phrase, jealous abhorrence. Whenever Charlotte came to see them, she concluded her to be anticipating the hour of possession. And whenever she spoke in a low voice to Mr. Collins, it was convinced that they were talking of Longbourn Estate, and resolving to turn herself and her daughters out of the house as soon as Mr. Bennet was dead. She complained bitterly of all this to her husband. You know, that's fair, because they were doing that. Like, I don't know if Charlotte was doing it, but her parents were. So that's not so kooky a thing to think. Indeed, Mr. Bennet, said she, it is very hard to think that Charlotte Lucas should ever be mistress of this house, that I should be forced to make way for her, and live to see her take my place in it. My dear, do not give way to such gloomy thoughts. Let us hope for better things. Let us flatter ourselves that I may be the survivor. I love that. Like, you know, don't give up on me yet. I have a few years left in me. This is not very consoling to Mrs. Bennet, and therefore, instead of making an answer, she went on as before. I cannot bear to think that they should have all this estate. If it was not for the entail, I should not mind it. What does that mean? Not for the entail? What should you not mind? I should not mind anything at all. Let us be thankful that you are preserved from a state of such insensibility. I never can be thankful, Mr. Bennet, for anything about the entail. How anyone could have the conscience to entail away an estate from one's own daughters, I cannot understand. And all for the sake of Mr. Collins, too. Why should he have it more than anybody else? I leave it to yourself to determine, said Mr. Bennet. He's just like, I don't know, you think about it, I guess. Whoa! That was the end of volume 1. I didn't even know that, I didn't remember that this had volumes. Dang. That's probably a good place to stop then. Oh boy, now I'm gonna have to remember I'm gonna have to remember the chapters, because they are labeled as like 1, 2. Okay, so bad to go, but it's great to have you. This was quite the adventure. I hope that you have enjoyed our time. Let me know if there is anybody you have in mind who I should raid. But yes, things did not quite go the way I thought they would. I really thought that we were going to get back to some more Mr. Darcy fun, but Mr. Darcy's gone, along with Mr. Bingley, and I really thought we'd be rid of Mr. Collins, and we're not. So, yeah. But it was indeed very interesting, very twisty, and I'm curious to see where things pick up. I'm guessing it will pick up after Mr. Bingley gets back, that it'll be some time has passed, because I was like, oh, like, I'm sad that there'll be a bunch of chapters without him, but I guess there won't be, presumably. So, yeah. Alright, we can raid them. Thank you so much for joining me. I will talk to you next time.